Hey, welcome to another Roundhill Art Center virtual art lesson. I'm Eric Scott, and today we are diving into the world of paper sculpture. We're going to focus on a few techniques, mainly folding, but we'll also be doing some cutting and some gluing. I'm going to do more non-objective, abstract kind of things, but think about whatever you want to make anything that you want. But we're just simply going to think about folding and how we can use that to create really kind of funky sculptures. So the first one that I'm going to kind of show you is one made from a single piece of paper, and just by cutting and folding, so no glue whatsoever. Going to focus on that. And then the second one is joining different pieces together by folding. Okay, and then here's an example. This is what I made during the video. It's just kind of a, again, it's not supposed to be anything. It might be a little house or a building or a structure or a crazy playground kind of equipment, but we're really going to focus on that folding, but we're also going to talk a little bit about gluing and cutting as well. So let's go ahead and let's talk about materials, and we'll get started with our paper sculpture. Let's talk about materials. So of course it's a paper sculpture, so you're going to need some paper. I've got a big stack of construction paper, but really any kind of paper can work, even just plain printer paper, so use what you have. I'm going to use some of my construction paper. We're going to be gluing. I'm going to be using the liquid white glue. I just find that it's a little bit stronger, a little bit easier to use. Glue stick will work, but sometimes it doesn't stick as well. I have a pencil so that I can draw if I need to draw anything, scissors to cut, of course, and I have a ruler because I might draw some straight lines. So let's go ahead and start with a real simple technique where you're not even going to need glue. With this technique, you're really going to need just two things, a piece of paper and scissors. Okay, so we're going to create a paper sculpture out of a single piece of paper, and we're just going to fold and cut. And I can fold this any way that I want. I don't have to fold it in half. Maybe I'm just going to fold it over a little bit like this. Maybe I want to flip it over, and maybe I want to fold part of it back this way. So I'm always trying to fold it so that it's going to stand up. So after I'm done folding it, I'll make it stand up. So here we go, and fold that a little bit. So I just made 3 simple folds. You can fold it once, twice, 3, 4, 5 times. If it's a big paper, you can probably fold it a lot, but with a smaller paper, it's probably better that it is a little bit smaller. So you can see right now that it is standing up. It's kind of sitting on the work surface. If I turn it this way, you can see how it creates that zigzag. I'll leave it lay down like that just so that you can see as I'm working on it. But you know, that's not the most interesting sculpture. So I want to do something to the inside of this. But before I do that, I want to take the folds that I have and I want to reverse them the opposite way just to make things bend a little bit easier. So I'll flip this side over, and I'm going to fold this fold back. And then this one as well is going to fold back. But then I can't forget about the fold in the middle, so I flip it over and I'm going to fold it back as well. And the reason that I fold these back and forth is just so that things pop and bend and flip a little bit easier. Because what I'm going to do now is I'm going to cut some spaces in here that I'm going to do something kind of cool with. So the first one, first cut that I'm going to show you is actually to do 2 cuts. And so I'm going to do 2 cuts in just 1 fold. So make sure that you're only working with 1 fold. And when I cut, I don't want to go past this edge here. So I only want to go a little bit. So if I take my scissors and if I go straight, I'm going to make 2 straight cuts that are about the same length. They don't have to be perfectly the same length. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this little flap now that I've created, and I'm going to fold it If I need to, I can take my fingernail and really rub it down. Okay, so I've got this little flap. Now I want to open up the fold, and then I want to take that flap and I want to bend it back the opposite way. So again, just so there's a little bit more kind of, it gets a little bit looser, it can bend either way. Okay, so now here's where the magic happens. This is where the cool part happens. So I don't want to open this all the way flat. I want to open it just a little bit so there's still a little bit of a fold in there, and then I'm just going to take my fingers and I'm going to push right here on this middle fold, right here where that flap was, and it's going to pop through to the back. And if I fold it back now, you can see how that flap is inside. Okay, so that's a really interesting way to create a 3D look on this paper. And if I flip it over, you can see how that looks on the back part. Okay, so I have room down here and I've got these 3 other folds. So let me go ahead and do another one. Maybe I'll jump over here to this small side. So again, I want to cut. I always want to pay attention to the shorter side that's folded. So this is pretty short. I don't want to cut through here. So what I can do is I can cut straight, but maybe this time I don't want to do another straight cut that's parallel. Maybe I want to do one that goes up, that's slanted. Okay, so then I can take this and I'm going to fold that. Again, remember, really take your fingernail, and then I want to flip the whole thing over so that I can take this flap and fold it back the other way. Okay, and then kind of unfold the flap, unfold this just a little bit, and then I want to take my finger and sort of pop that through. Sometimes it's not as easy, so let me hold it again this way. There it goes, and it pops through. Okay, so it's the same thing as over here, but it's just a little bit of a different shape down here. Okay, so now I've got 2 of those. So there's lots of different things I can do. Maybe here I want to do one that's a little bit different. So this time I'm going to take and I'm going to make 1 cut. Okay, so in this big part I'm going to make 1 cut, maybe right down here where it's not going to run into these at the top. And I'm going to cut once. Okay, again, I don't want to go too far, but this time instead of, I only do 1 cut, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold a triangle. So if I take the fold, so I'm on the fold, and I want to fold a triangle, so if I imagine a diagonal line right here, and then when I fold that down, that creates a triangle. It's like an open triangle and a closed triangle. And then I can rub it down, make sure it's flat, and then flip it over. And the same thing, I want to fold it back. Folding it back the second time just makes it pop through easier. Okay, so it just makes that fold a little bit looser. And then I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to open it up, and maybe you can kind of see the triangle, and then I'm going to push. So I kind of have one hand underneath, and then this can push it through, and it pops through the other side. Okay, and then if I fold it completely, I can really make that flap kind of disappear. But when I open it up, now it's got a triangle. Okay, but I don't know if you notice. Watch what happens whenever I close it and then open it. You see how that triangle actually kind of moves? So here's a really cool trick. I'm going to flip this back over here. Okay, so I come back here. I'm going to do another triangle up here. So again, I just fold it, make that angle, make that little triangle right there. Use my fingernail, really rub it down, and then flip it over and fold it back. Again, this is just making that fold a little bit easier to kind of bend and whatever. So I'm open it up, take my one hand, stick it underneath to support the paper. So this is kind of like a mountain. Okay, so this is the top of the mountain or like a roof of a building. And then I just take my finger and push that through and it pops through. Okay, and if I close it up, fold it up all the way, so that those two little pieces have disappeared because now they're tucked in on this side. Now watch this. So I love doing this. So if I do this, and then it's almost like a little mouth. It's like if I just open it up a little bit and close it, it's like the mouth opens and the mouth closes. And I can make it talk. So I think that's always kind of cool. But like I said, you know, I have this three-dimensional looking thing now. It's not just a flat piece of paper. So I can keep doing this. So I have all these other spaces. Now here's a little trick though. You see this one? I can do a little one right here. It's a little bit trickier because what happens is if I'm going to try to cut this part, okay, I got to pull this together. But look, you know, if I totally fold it, it disappears. So I just sort of have to hold it with my fingers, and so I can get my scissors in there. And if I cut one and two little lines, and then fold. Now this is the hard part, so I'm kind of holding it here, and I'm going to fold it one way and then fold it back the other way, and then when I open it up, then I can put my finger underneath, and I can take it and pop that through the other side, and then again I can fold it completely up, and there I have a little mark that's inside of it. Okay, so I can do that inside, but I can also do it at the edge. So let me do one up here at the edge. All I need to do is to make one cut this time. And instead of doing a straight fold, what if well, yeah, let's go ahead and do a straight fold for right now. So I'm just going to fold that straight over. And then again, flip this over to the back so I can fold the flat back the other side. Okay. And then open it up so that I can then push it through. This is a little bit harder because it's at the edge. So maybe what I want to do is take a finger down here and hold it, and then I could take this and just push easy, and it pops through to the other side. Okay. So you can start to see how that really starts to get 3D. Now another thing I could do, maybe up here, instead of cutting, I'm just going to fold. I'm going to do another triangle. So if I just have it folded and I fold the triangle, so I don't even need to cut for this. And then if I take it and fold it back the other way, okay, so do the same thing, open it up, and then push it through to the other side. So now that part is going in. Okay. So I can just keep doing that. Maybe I want to do a long, skinny one. Maybe it's going to be shorter here. Maybe it's a little bit longer up here. And so this time when I fold it, it's going to have an angle. So not quite a triangle, but notice how it's angled. It's not straight like those are. So again, I can use my fingernail to really crease it down, flip the whole thing over, and then I'm going to take this and bend it back. And then open it up, take my finger. This one's a little bit harder. Come on. Alright, there it goes. Alright. And so I have all these little spaces. I can cut more and do more little pieces. And maybe I'm going to do a little teeny tiny one right here. Not a very long cut. And then fold it. Flip it over. Fold it back. Open it up. And then pop that little part through. Come on, you can go. There we go. Sometimes the hardest part is just to pop those through. Okay. So, and then maybe what I can do is, this is a fold here too. So what if I did it here? What if I take this? Now, it's really hard because this is really short, so I can only cut in a little bit. Do one there, maybe one there. Again, I have to kind of hold this one up in the air, and I'm going to fold it this way, and then turn it over. And it's right here's that little flap. I'm getting so many, it's getting a little confusing, but right there's that little flap. Okay, and then I open that up, and then I push that part through. So really kind of have this, it kind of zigzags. The folds kind of zigzag back and forth. So if I hold it up this way, you can start to see kind of down through the different parts of it. So anyway, that's the first kind of technique that I wanted to share with just cutting and folding. So that's a pretty easy one to do, and you can do a bunch of these and they can all kind of stand up. Sometimes I've seen people try to make faces because this becomes kind of like a mouth. So anyway, try that and see what you can make. So let's go ahead and put that over here out of the way. And then now I want to go ahead and I'm going to use the glue, and I'm going to use maybe some of the scraps that I have. So these are scraps that, you know, maybe it's not a full sheet of paper. So maybe I don't want to use this whole piece, and that's why I have a ruler. Okay, so if I have a ruler and I hold it, now if I have it angled, then the piece isn't going to be a perfect rectangle, and that's fine. Maybe I don't want it to be a perfect rectangle. If you want it to be a better rectangle, hold it so that it's even. If you wanted to, you could always measure, like make this 3 inches and that 3 inches. But I just find that sometimes it's easy to hold it, and then I draw my line all the way across. And you can see that line, it's a little bit shiny with the light, and then I can cut that part off. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to fold, because this is all about just using folding and all the different ways that you can fold. And I've already showed you that you could just take a single piece of paper and fold it and make it stand up, right? So maybe I want to go ahead and fold it in half. That's a simple way to do it. Again, I can take my fingernail and really rub it down, and then I open it up, and then, you know, it stands up. Okay? But let's say that I want it to be connected to something else. So let's say that I'm going to take a piece of my purple here, okay, and I want to connect the purple to that. I don't want this big piece, so again, I'll just take my ruler. Maybe this time I will have it slanted. So if I wanted to, I could just take this and glue it flat on that red piece, but then it just will get longer. What I want to do though is I want to connect it. Maybe I want to connect the red to the purple. Okay, so even if I fold the purple, like if I make a little fold right there, you know, the purple now is going to stand up. Oop, maybe, unless I knock it over. And the red stands up. But now how do I connect them? And some people are like, oh, you can put glue there and stick them together. But that's not going to work too well, because that's just a real thin line. It's not very easy to do. So I'm going to need to do something that is called a flap, or some people call it a tab. But if I make a little fold, just fold over the very end here. So if I take this little end right here and fold it over, and that's going to make a little flap. And that's the key to this. So I have this little piece that's folded over here at the end, and that's going to get glued to the purple piece. And I can glue that anywhere. Maybe it's going to go there, or maybe it goes that way. Okay. I think maybe this way. So what I want to do is I want to put glue on this part. Okay. So take my glue bottle. I'm going to open it up. So always make sure that you're twisting the cap. That's the number one thing. People are like, oh, this glue bottle doesn't work, and they forget to open it, or it's clogged. So I made sure there's no glue on here, and if I don't know if you can hear that, but it sounds like the bottle's breathing. That's because the air's coming out. I know that it's not clogged up. That's why it's always important to close your glue cap. If you do have glue inside, never try to shove a pencil in it or try to cut off the top, because then you just ruin the tip. It's better to have somebody to take that apart and take the dried up glue out of it. So what I want to do is I want to hold my glue bottle upside down, let the glue run to the tip. Okay. If I sit here long enough, the glue is going to drip out. Okay, but I don't want it to do that. So I want to hold it to the paper. It's actually touching the paper. Don't hold it way up here and let it drip down. I want to touch it to the paper, and if I squeeze just easy enough, I can get a little dot of glue. Okay, so whenever I was teaching little kids, I always tell them just a dot, not a lot. Okay, now if you've got this down, you could always squeeze it and do a line of glue. Okay. Sometimes what I like to do is just take my finger and spread the glue around. That's going to make it stick quicker. And I can cover that whole flap. Now I have glue on my finger, so what do? Well, what I do is just rub my fingers together. And what happens is the glue kind of dries up and creates these little crumbs of glue. Okay, then I'm going to take this and I'm going to stick them together. Okay. If I need to, if I fold it flat, I can rub it and really hold it down so the glued part is underneath. But I want to make sure that I do that, or I can take my fingers and hold it together like this. And I just want to make sure that I'm doing that, you know, I always say like 30 seconds. But if it's longer than 30 seconds, sometimes you have a lot of glue on there and it's going to be like a whole minute. Or if you have too much glue, it might take 5 minutes or 10 minutes or even 20 minutes. So after 30 minutes to a minute, if your pieces aren't stuck together, there's probably two reasons. Number one is that you have just way too much glue on there. And if you have a ton of glue on there, like I said, it might take 10 minutes for it to dry and it's just going to peel apart. The other reason is that you don't get enough glue on there. And so if the pieces are apart and you feel like, hey, the glue's all dried up, that's when you put more glue on it. But if you already have a ton of glue on there and it's still real wet and slick and sticky with glue, don't put more glue, just stick it together. Okay? So anyway, I'm starting to get this sculpture underway. Maybe I'll take some green. Again, I have these really big pieces of paper and I don't need all of it. Okay, now I'm going to show you a technique. Again, it's all just folding because this is all about cutting and folding the paper. But this is a great way to make, maybe you want to make a building. And you want your building to have steps. So this is called an accordion fold. So if you think about the musical instrument, the accordion, in the middle of the accordion is something called the bellows, and it has a zigzag kind of shape to it. And that's what we're going to do. I'm going to fold this paper so it's zigzagged. So I'll hold it this way, and I'm going to just fold over a little bit at the bottom. Okay. Again, rub it down. You can even use your fingernail. If I pick it up, the idea is if I want it to be even, I want the fold to be right here at the edge. So I can bend that back. So I bend it back in the opposite direction. And again, take my fingers. I can really rub it. So if I pick it up, now the idea is I flip it this way. I want to bend it back. So I'm kind of going underneath. So if I keep it kind of looking toward me, I can bend it back and forth. Sometimes people are like, oh, I can bend it on the table. So if you do, you can bend it. And I find it's just a little bit harder to like make it more even this way. but you can. So you can bend it that way, and then bend it back this way. So just bending it back and forth to create the accordion fold. Now I have a little one here at the top, so maybe that becomes the where I glue it. Okay, so when I pull it and stretch it apart, it's a zigzag. If I look at it from the side, it almost looks like steps. So if I take this, then I can glue it. Maybe I want to hook it around like that. So a little bit of glue on the back here. So, you know, I can again use dots or draw a little line and glue. And if I want to spread it, sometimes people will use a little paintbrush that they can spread the glue. Remember, glue on my fingers, rub it together, and then this is just going to hook over the top. Maybe I'll go with this light blue. So I can, and I don't have to use a ruler, so if you don't have a ruler, you could use something else that has a straight edge on it, or you could just kind of eyeball it and try to cut straight. I find though that if I try to just cut it without the line, then I can't cut very straight. Okay, now this is a little long, so maybe I'm going to cut this so it's different sizes. Okay, so I got my sculpture here. Now I gotta think, like, where do I want this? Do I want it to come up? Maybe I want this to lean in, but I still need to have that flap. So always folding a flap. Now when I did the accordion fold for the green paper, it had a built-in flap. So that flap just makes it so much easier. Put the glue on. Now this time I'm not even gonna spread it out, and I'll just show you. You just need to hold it. Okay, maybe you have to pick it up. Sometimes you pick it up and just, it's moving around. So I'm just gonna hold it with my two fingers the best I can for, like, you know, 30 seconds, 20 seconds, a minute if it's a lot of glue. Okay, maybe I want to build up. Maybe I want to make it taller. So maybe I want this to come up and then maybe fold over. So if I glue it like this on the side, I don't need a flap. This is kind of the flap down here. It just comes out straight. But I want it to come up and I want it to come over, so I'm going to fold it. So it's going to come up and out of my sculpture. I'm just going to put a little bit of glue down here. So I'm just kind of building something. It's not supposed to be anything in particular. We might call that an abstract or a non-objective sculpture. You can make anything you want. You might decide, like, oh, you know, by folding these flaps, I can make a house, or I can make a castle, or I can make a funky playground thing. You know, maybe that's what mine starts to look like. Like, these are steps over here, and this is a slide. This is maybe a diving board. Well, maybe I want to have a pool. Or maybe I want to build something that comes up here and comes over and connects to that. So there's all kinds of different things that I can do. So let me choose another color. And it's just a matter of cutting, maybe folding a flap if I need to. So now what I want to do, I want this green to come over and I want it to connect to the purple part over here. So I'm going to kind of eyeball it and kind of think, like, okay, right about there. So I don't know if you noticed, like, here's the purple part. It's hard to see, but and then I kind of have my thumbs and I can look and say, oh, it's about that long. And then I can make sure that I fold it right there where my thumb was. Okay, and so that's going to stick up like that. I don't need all of this green here because it goes down inside, but I kind of like it on this side. So I think I'm going to keep it, and I want to put glue on it. So I'm going to show you how you can put glue on a lot, on a big piece. So I can do little dots, just a dot, not a lot, or just do kind of a zigzag of glue if I can squeeze a continuous line. Maybe do a line that goes up the sides. And like I said, if I wanted to, I could spread it with my fingers, but I'm going to stick this in. Over here. Have it come up. Okay, so I can hold it. So I'm really just, it's a big spot, so I'm really making sure I'm kind of moving my fingers, moving my fingers around. Make sure I hold it over here where you guys can see it. Okay, so now I have these two pieces at the top that can come together. And I want to put a little bit of glue underneath on the green. Okay. Again, I just want to hold it for about 20 seconds. 30 seconds, a minute, depending on how much glue. Okay, so I'm starting to get, let's kind of flip it over, starting to get this like funky, crazy looking, colorful 3D thing. I'm going to show you one more technique. It still is going to use folds, but I'm going to be able to make kind of like a tunnel. Let's go ahead and go back to the purple. Okay, so the way I make kind of an arch or a tunnel, so I'm going to cut out my rectangle. So notice that a lot of times I'm starting off with a rectangle. Doesn't have to be a rectangle, but okay. So in order to make a tunnel or a curve, an arch, I want the paper to curve. But how do I glue that down then? Well, I could, like here at the top, I could glue it to the sides and have it bend. But that might not work too well depending on like where I'm going to glue it. So I'm going to fold two flaps. One on each side. So there's a flap and there's a flap. Okay. And the idea is that this will get glued down to the top of my sculpture. So if I put it down this way, I'm going to glue it like that. So I'm going to do one at a time. A little bit of glue. Again, always touch your glue bottle to the paper. And then I'm going to glue it to the top of my sculpture. Stick it right on the end. Hold it down. That's the nice thing about being able to fold it flat for now. Okay, so there's the flap glued to the top. And it's going to come over this way and get glued down to the top there. So I need to put some glue on this flap. And then I bend it over and stick it to the side. I'm going to take my fingers and kind of grab it from the inside so I can just hold it. So I'm holding it with two fingers underneath. Okay, again, 20 seconds, 30 seconds, maybe a minute. And now you can see how I have the arch, that kind of a tunnel shape on top. I could do that elsewhere and have little tunnel shapes. So anyway, so this is, I'm kind of getting done with the main part. I have no idea. It's not really supposed to be anything. It's just kind of this crazy creation. Okay. But maybe I want to take some of my pieces, maybe like this. This time maybe I'm not going to cut using a ruler, maybe it kind of comes out to a point, because maybe I want this to stick out, you know, or stick up from the piece. So just a little bit of glue. So I can have these little details sticking out, sticking up, glue it onto the side right here. So I got this piece that kind of flaps around. Maybe I want some pieces coming out this way. I think maybe some yellow. How to find it. To maybe cut this into some smaller pieces. So not everything has to have a flap. So this is going to get glued to the purple part sticking out. You know, so if you're just gluing it flat, no reason to have a flap. But if you want to have it folded and make things stand up, make a box type shape or make a house type shape, or you're going to do a crazy castle, or you can even make a robot. I mean, you can use this technique to make so many different things. I'm just kind of doing a more abstract, funky looking piece. Now let's say that I want this to stand up. Maybe it's going to stand up over here on the green steps. So I can fold a little flap and then put a little glue, and then it's going to stand up right there on the green zigzag or accordion fold. You know, maybe you decide like, oh, you're gonna make a little person. That's a great way to make a little person and have it stand up. So anyway, so I've got my kind of crazy creation there. I can keep adding to it, or I can do another one, but just a couple real kind of easy, simple cutting and folding, and using a little bit of glue, you can create some cool things. So, okay, I hope you had a lot of fun working with paper today. I know that I did. I love using paper because we have paper all over. We have printer paper, we might have some construction paper or drawing paper. We could just use so many things that even if you didn't have glue, you could always tape it together. So I hope you enjoyed it. I know that I did, and I really appreciate you taking some time out and joining me today and creating some art. So thank you so much. Don't forget to share and post. We would love to see what you've been making. So thank you so much, and as always, happy creating.